Okay, so we're going to start without any more interruptions. Thanks for your patience. The topic is enablers for assistive tech. So we all know that there are several barriers, okay, and a range of them. And the purpose of assistive tech is basically to ensure that people live a healthy life, a productive life. Poonam showed it. They have access to education, access to employment, um, and live like all the rest. Um, the I was looking at some statistics. WHO had published a study which said that by 2030, the AT market will be something like 2 billion. Um, Now, with everyone wanting, using at least one assistive technology, and as people grow older, as the former speaker showed, the market would possibly expand. Then, on the other hand, we also know the great amount of creativity in India. India can actually be a global hub for assistive tech. Um, I've just come back from Delhi, and let me tell you, there seems to be a buzz around assistive tech. Day one, I participated in a panel. I moderated a panel for youth, and there was a girl with visual impairment. What she actually said was she talked about STEM in education and using a geometry box, which I think IIT Delhi had uh, invented. So, what she was saying was that unlike the other geometry boxes, here if one small part gets lost, she has to buy the whole thing again. And so, therefore, she was talking about value for money products available to youngsters, like them. And she said that when she was in school, she's from a low middle class family. She didn't know about assistive tech and really wishes she had because so many years of her life had got lost. So there again, it's advocacy. The second day, I was with one of the multinational banks, and they were talking about if they invest money in India, where should they put the money? What aspect of disability should they invest in? Should it be assistive tech, accessibility? So there again. The next day I went to the government, and government also were talking about the importance of assistive tech, the fact that they're having a large global exhibition in Delhi in December. So I just thought to myself as we were beginning this session that there seems to be some kind of a wave right now with various stakeholders talking about it. So maybe it's really time for us to all come together and to ride this wave to see whether we can all do something together, and that's what empower is rather than work in silos. So we'll begin the session by each of us briefly introducing ourselves, 3 minutes each, okay? And talking also about our connect with assistive technology. Let me begin. My name is Meera Shenoy. I'm founder of Youth for Jobs and not just art. We've just mounted a global ability photography challenge for the first time, and we want to deepen our work in this space as a seamless way of advocating the ability in disability. Youth for Jobs, we began working in training and uh, placing youth with disabilities, but because you have to press so many levers in advocacy in colleges, companies, etc., we've actually become a system changer. And 2 days back, we launched Swaraj Ability, the AI triggered, totally accessible job platform for youth with disabilities. We hope it was launched by the government, the CIIS come on board, and various partners who are important have come on board. This platform is meant for all of you all. So whoever's here, please join hands with us. In the field of assistive technology, various people come to test the products with us. In our smart inclusion centers in colleges, we showcase and encourage people to come and show the various technologies. And a lot of companies nowadays have been asking us to do special presentations on assistive tech, especially in the space of employment. So that's what we do. Over to you, Professor.
Yeah, my name is Balakrishnan. So myself, along with Professor Madhusudan Rao, who is also on this panel, we founded the original Assistive. Okay, Pratik Madhav has stolen our name and created an Assistive Foundation. So anyway, so we've been in this space for more than 15 years now, but we made a very major change a few years back. And that's something that I would like to share with you. And that's what I would like that in this, many people like us should do, people who have had some experience. It was a hard time. We took a long time to build the network. Of course, we have great mentors like Dipendra Manocha, but still building a network, making an understanding, and coming up with even one solution which could actually scale was a fairly difficult task. But in this task, we met people who were supporters, people who enabled us, people who funded us. I'm particularly thankful to Welcome Trust, who did this Affordable Healthcare in India project, which gave us the real breakthrough to come up with a solution. She also mentioned the geometry kit. So let me tell you, we did not invent the geometry kit. There was actually an innovator who actually built the geometry kit. We have built a partnership to take it and disseminate it. Of course, we have contributed to the final refinement because the manufacturing and all is being done by Raceline Foundation. So now what we have decided is the fact that we took 10 years to build this network, we should use to take other people who are innovating to take it forward and help them to either productionization, dissemination, reaching out to the community that we know. Because if every innovator, today we talk about so many startups here, there are so many startups, if each of these innovators is going to follow the same path that we followed, most of them will reach the valley of death that was talked about. We were lucky, we had the IT brand name, we had some support, we had many things happened in our journey. And it may not have happened also because I knew for so many years I struggled and I'm still struggling on so many of my proven, validated solutions to actually take it to the users. So it's not an easy job. So I think many of us should look, people who are senior, people who have had created the networks, either NGOs or organizations, to be able to partner with other innovators and help them to take it to and disseminate this. I think this is a very important requirement in the assistive technology space that we need, because building those networks, partnerships, and having a visibility is extremely important. So many times when we are in the academic institution, we get a senior, and when they are ragging the freshers, we ask, why are you ragging? He says, I was also ragged when I was in the first year. So we should not have that attitude towards taking products. Just because I struggled to take my first product, the other person doesn't have to have the same struggle to take his product to the market. Thank you.
Subir, 50 years.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm audible, right? Okay. Okay, somebody at the back said this. Okay. So, good afternoon, all. I'm Sameer Raval. I am representing a pre-incubation called Digital Impact Square. We are a TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, a small company, obviously. We're running this through our foundation, and we focus on nurturing young people and encouraging them to create their own social startups. So it's essentially, as Professor rightly said, the ecosystem is quite fragmented, and it's high time we bring it together. So for us, what is unique is we predominantly work with young people, very young people. So the average age is 20 to 23 years. We take wicked problems that very few people are interested in solving or have tried solving but have not figured out how to solve it. And we want to solve it by nurturing startups, right? So it's essentially taking the worst of everything in terms of challenges and bringing it together, a bit like trying to box with one hand tied behind you. But it is very important because in our society, we usually have three types of people. We have a large population which is don't care, apathy. We have a significant population out of on the remainder, which is whiners who keep complaining, and we have a very small group of people called problem solvers. And in any society which aspires to create innovation or bring innovation to the fore, that society has a reasonably bigger ratio of problem solvers vis-a-vis the societies which are not innovative. And I think one of our aspiration has been to try and nurture and bring out those problem solvers, even those who are sitting on the fence, see if we can nudge them towards problem solving in the first place. So with that, I think we started our journey in 2016 in Nashik. There is a Nashik, for those of you who are not aware, it's a small city to the north of Mumbai, 3 hours north of Mumbai. And the origins lie in the Kumbh Mela, perhaps for a later time, if anybody is interested in knowing why we set it up in Nashik. But we set it up in 2016, and over the last 6-7 years, we run a cohort where we take very young individuals and teams, pre-revenue, probably just prototypes, in different areas. I specifically focus on assistive solutions. And we try to see if we can support them for 18 months to 24 months to become startups. And I think today's conversation, when we talk assistive technology, there are different ways in which sustainable impact can be created. According to me, the most sustainable impact, or in terms of time, in terms of sustainability, is if there is a startup that sees value in continuing and for profit if possible. So if you can manage that, that's a sweet spot for what we have realized. And looking forward to interacting with some amazing people on this forum to see how we can all help that. Thank you so much.
Ravi, can we have yours?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ravi Narayan. I'm part of Assistive Technology Foundation, ATF. When we began this journey 4 years ago, there was already a statistic of 15% of the population having some disability of some kind that they were dealing with. But when we also wanted to add in those people who are temporarily disabled, who are going through a rehabilitative process and getting out of a surgery or something else, and also the aging population to that, suddenly it's no longer 1 billion people on the planet, but possibly 2 billion people that need assistance. That's a huge, in the startup world, totally available market. And if you are solving for that, there is the possibilities of building some very, important innovations through startups, through this mechanism. So we took a tack of betting on this entity that is absolutely hungry, creative, naive maybe, and at the same time very hungry to succeed. And these entities are the startups. We said if these people can actually go and define a piece of the problem, and start solving them, and they actually prove that they can actually do so in a consistent way, then we will put our weight behind them and help them become successful so that one, they're able to create a scale impact across this large population that we just talked about. But at the same time, we also have the ability to get few more people excited about doing this and taking on this journey of solving problems in this space, and do so with the knowledge that there are organizations such as ours that can actually back them. So the tack was a little different in the sense that we did not go to the earliest of the problem solvers. We went to the latest of the problem solvers, people who have gone through initial mortality, people who have gone through already all the pivots, as we call in the startup world, and come to a stage of some stability. Even though they were still pivoting, the amplitude of their pivots was not as high. And they began to stabilize, and they had actually started making an impact amongst a small amount of beneficiaries. And we said we will throw our might behind them. So today, as we speak, 4 years from the time we started, we have 32 startups, and they have touched the lives of 4.6 lakh people across India. And that's the kind of impact that we can create. And this is the Pareto law. I mean, you take the top 10%, you're able to, get 90% of the impact by, going, working with them. Of course, we have not taken our eyes off of the rest of the ecosystem. There are about 350 plus startups if you look at India. We are working with only 32 of them, about 10%. But the other folks get a huge amount of assistance in other mechanisms, and so that we can continue to build the ecosystem as we go along. So today, after 6 o'clock, when you join us once again, you will join us for the ATF Awards. At the ATF Awards, we are not only acknowledging, appreciating the work that the startups have done, but we are also acknowledging and appreciating all the other enablers who are actually helping the journeys of these startups in making that happen. The CSRs, the investors, the NGOs, and academic institutions, and so on and so forth. Uh, that is what we believe is the approach that has been working for us so far, and in the last 4 years, to have done so to reach 4.6 lakh people is, I think, uh, you know, a good milestone. But we are hungry for more, and we would like to work with as many more startups as we can in, increasing our impact as much as we can. Thank you.
I'm going to request Subita to introduce herself.
Can you all hear me? Hi everyone, my name is Sunita, and before I talk about where I am and who I am, I'm going to give a quick visual description of myself for our visually impaired audience. So I am a brown female, approximately fairly young looking, I have a black coat, a grey top, blue jeans, and I'm wearing white sneakers. So that's just me. And today I'm absolutely honored to be on a panel of absolute powerhouses today. I come from the Zero Project, which is based in Vienna, in Austria. And what we do is we identify innovative policies and practices from all around the world, from NGOs, startups, governments, and even businesses. We've been running for about 10 years now, and each year we identify about 70 innovations that we connect with external funders, international development agencies, as well as other potential partners as part of our Zero Project conference. Thematically, we don't have one theme that we tend to work with, but mainly it focuses around 4 main themes on education, employment, accessibility, and independent living and political participation, which is what I think is a very key focus of Empower 2022 this year. So yes, that's just a little bit about me, and I'll be more than happy to share what we do, how we do it a little bit more during the panel discussion. Thank you.
Mohan?
Thanks. My name is Mohan Sundaram, and I come from RT Lab Foundation. Just a brief journey. I spent about 30 years in the corporate world, largely in startups. I'm a technology as a strategy guy, and I got into the I got into incubation in 2009, and I got into the social sector in 2012. And in 2015, I went on doing a worldwide innovation event for disability along with the Red Cross. Kathy Holloway talked about the Red Cross, and also Newbold talked about Enable Makeathon. That was the event that I did along with a couple of others and the Red Cross. And it was amply clear at that point of time that there were a lot of people who were willing to spend the time innovating for disability. And what we needed to do was to set up something that would enable them to continue their work. And that led me to start RT Lab Foundation, which was a incubator, DST approved technology business incubator, the first of its kind at that time, to focus on disability. And like what Ravi said, there's a huge spectrum. There's early stage guys who make prototypes, convert it to products, do testing, and then go to market and all that. There are a lot of people on the fag end, which is go to market and taking mature companies by acceleration. And I chose to focus on the end where mortality was high, because I think that is where you need critical support, all in terms of building prototypes, in terms of design, in terms of manufacturing, and clinical testing. And that was an area that I knew pretty well, coming from the disability space also. And that's what we set up in Bangalore, and we have a large center unique because we have a prototyping center, which virtually nobody else has. A very high-end prototyping center where we can help all the startups. 80% of the solutions in the AT space is physical in nature. 20% is digital. And all of them require some physical prototyping, manufacturing, and testing to be done. And that is where we thought we can help in clinical testing, product testing, and product prototyping. And that's the space that we concentrate in. We have incubated about 20 companies so far, done well, but a long way to go. Thank you.
Oh, am I audible? Yeah. Thanks for this opportunity. So, as Bala mentioned, I'm a faculty at IIT Delhi, and I've been part of assistive technology lab for now 15 years. But these 15 years have been really a great journey. Uh, Particularly, you start with certain assumptions about assistive technology, and during your journey, you realize and learn many things. And I think I still consider myself as a student of assistive technology, still many more things to learn. Just to give a glimpse of that, coming from a technical institute, you think that technology can solve an assistive technology problem, and you look at more from the technical aspect. Soon you realize that there is a medical dimension, there is a social dimension, there is a business dimension, and then there is a human-centered dimension. And integrating all of them in the form of products and solutions requires some time and learning. And often the mistake which is done is when you look at assistive technology, you look more from the functional aspect of the product or a solution. Functional aspect is a very small aspect. There are many more aspects which need to be included when you do particularly in assistive technology. I think the goal is not just the functionality, it's more about independence, it's more about participation, it's more about aspirations, it's more about empowerment. And I think those become a very key word rather than the functionality when you do. And often we look at making assistive technology affordable is probably the goal. Affordability is one aspect, but then soon you realize that access and awareness are even much bigger problems. Unless you crack those, just making a assistive technology affordable is not enough. And lastly, when we look at the ecosystem, we look more from the product point of view. But I think, as WHO says, product is one of the 5 Ps. The other 4 Ps become very important in terms of the people, assistive technology personnel, the policy and provisioning, which will not allow you to take your product to people. So I think these are some of the really great learnings in these 15 years, and I think we are still continue to learn.
So today, I think over here we have a very rich panel with varied experience. Some of them working with early startups, some with later ones, some with youth, and all of them hungry for more. So because of time, I'm going to just ask them one question, after which, please all of you prepare questions to ask so that we can make this an interactive session. So the only question which I'm going to ask all of you, and I may change it for Sumi, is what you think needs to be done in the assistive tech field to produce one or two unicorns?
Let me just take that first. I keep getting asked this question. Hello. Yeah. So I get asked this question. Audible? I get asked this question a couple of times because we run an incubator specifically. And when audible? Yeah. Yeah. So I get asked this question, they run a TBI and everybody wants to say unicorn, unicorn, unicorn. My submission is, let's forget unicorns in the 80 space. It's a wrong expectation to say we will have to see unicorns. In every other space, it takes you about 6 to 7 years to make a unicorn. It'll probably take us 15, 20 years, if at all, to make a unicorn. I'll give you another piece of information statistic. The only company in 80 that I know that has gone public is Reebok in the US. They moved from Israel to the US and went public. Autobot and every other company that is big in the assistive space is still a private limited company, closely held private limited company, right? So if you set expectations of saying, this is unicorns in the 80 space, I think we're sort of out of context. And the most common example that I give is 80 is today at a space where microfinance was in the 70s. You should invest in development of the sector, invest more and more and more. It will take about 20 years for it to become a mature industry. And you need to invest till then and not expect unicorns for the 20 years. It took 20 years till in the mid-90s for us to get a successful business model and microfinance to become a successful industry by itself, which is what will happen. You cannot get unicorns in an immature industry. It has to become a mature industry. So,
to sort of add to what Mohan has to say, see, there has also been a little bit of distortion in the way we look at it. Okay? I'm absolutely against all educational institutions publishing the placement data in terms of the person who got the highest pay package, irrespective of what the person is doing. So this is completely distorted the educational market in the country, the way the education is looked at. Similarly, business is getting distorted by, in my view, by measuring that how many unicorns or who produces unicorns. Why not measure in 80 space? 80 space, a lot of people are there who want to make a difference in the lives of the people. The measurement should be how many people we are able to touch. If we are able to touch a more number of people, if we start rewarding and accepting that as the success of, and the fact that this country has a lot of people who need that support, who need that assistance, who need that ecosystem and environment, I'm sure we will produce many unicorns in this new metric that we can talk about. This is the change that we should need to have. And sustainability is important. And that to that extent, we have a problem that most of our startups are not sustainable because of the way that the funding and the way that the market is. But to me, that's the way that I look upon it, because it's not the return of investment. Unicorns will happen when investors pour in money to get 20% return on.
Aspiring to trigger more startups, or at least young people to become startups, we should have some role models that they can look up to. And I think that's where we are currently struggling. We don't, in the 80 space, we do not have a role model. And I think 80 Foundation, through their work, is really doing some amazing work in that space, right? If through these conversations, the next generation of problem solvers, innovators can see this as an aspirational space, I think we have done fairly good in what we are trying to do. So I think in that context, a unicorn is nothing but a representation of a role model that can inspire a lot more people to get into this space.
Yeah. So, the startups in the assistive technology space have two metrics to go by. They have a double bottom line. One is, of course, profitability and valuation, which most of the commercial tech startups are measured by, and unicorns comes from that side of the world. But at the same time, as much as it is the right way to build strong businesses on strong business models and commercial elements, the additional responsibility that the assistive technology startups also take on is the impact that they should create amongst people. So, in fact, somebody said, let's try to see if we can actually create 1 billion smiles before $1 billion valuation. And so that becomes an important milestone to cross before you can actually start, coming and measuring the other side of valuations and so on and so forth. So I think we already have a fairly large market already of 2 billion people that we can reach today. And that is available. We are- all the 32 startups that we have worked with so far and all the people that will work in the future will all be, for-profit organizations. They are not going to be organizations that are going to be built on charity or other kinds of things. They are going to be built on the ability to create such a value for their customers that they're able to collect the appropriate amount of dollars for that, right? So they will be profitable. So the question then becomes, how do you really scale them and make this thing happen? So that's what we're working on. As I mentioned to you earlier, today we have only about 350 to 400 startups in India, whereas if you just look at the tech startups, 60,000 to 70,000 tech startups already in the country, and this started from a pretty much a zero in 2006 to 2022. In 16 years, it has come so far so quickly. We hope the same level of maturation will also happen in this space so that we can also grow the ecosystem of 80 startups as well, going to what Mohan said earlier. I think it's a matter of maturation. You can't expect, an early stage ecosystem to produce the same kind of results as a ecosystem that has evolved over the last 16 to 17 years. So I think it's a matter of time. We will see that. There have been unicorns, and there will be unicorns from India also, but it's just a matter of time before that happens. We have to wait and work with these guys and help them make impact before they can become unicorns, in the future.
Hi. So I think it was all very interesting, what a lot of my panelists have mentioned, but my background has always been in social sciences, and that's the lens that I look into with everything. And I love the fact that you said that it's not so much about $1 billion, but it's about $1 billion smiles. But I'm asking, I mean, I'm not from India, I've only been here for a week, but I think the people I've met have really had quite an impact. And I would like to ask, where are these billion smiles coming from? What sort of intersectionalities? We talk about gender, we talk about race, we talk about poverty levels. Even in a space like this, where this conference is being held, in level 6, you've got absolutely incredible assistive technology exhibitions going on. But just getting into this building is already a barrier for someone who probably could use a lot of these startups and a lot of these technologies, purely due to the fact that they can't afford to get here, or they don't even know this is happening. So I think I would be very interested in understanding where these billion smiles are coming from. We talk about a unicorn, but then we are easily, I think, neglecting a whole host of people outside of our silos, outside of our echo chambers. Everyone here agrees with everyone on the panel. I don't think there's anyone who disagrees with disability or disagrees with accessibility. We are all in an echo chamber saying that, we are all doing a fantastic job and pat ourselves on the back. But the issue is that the people who actually might push a startup or push an innovation into the unicorn stage are not even in the room of where we're talking in. So that's something I would like to see maybe in the future, the next time I'm in India. So yes.
So I'm the last one, and I'll probably change the narrative a little bit. So if you actually look at the first ever assistive technology report which world has released a few months back, and if you go by a broader definition of assistive technology, where 1/3 of the world population needs assistive technology, we already have unicorns. For example, if you do you consider spectacles as an assistive technology? We do have an Indian unicorn in that. And if do you consider mobile as an assistive technology? Probably one of the best assistive technologies is a mobile. Do you consider Alexa as an assistive technology, which can do 50 or 100 things for people with various disabilities? And now that geriatric and elderly is happening and the numbers are growing, if you consider assistive technologies for elderly, and I think there are many more unicorns to happen, and it has already happened.
So after that stimulating discussion, I'm going to request the audience to ask a question. Please specify to whom the question is. No, there's a question.
Actually, this is a bit of an observation and a question both. We've talked a lot about assistive technologies, we've talked about startups, but as places like Assistive Tech Foundation, oftentimes when assistive tech startups start up, there is a bias of myths and misconceptions about people with disabilities, right? The assumptions about what needs to be helped with, and the whole ethos of nothing for us without us. The people who are starting these startups are not always people with disabilities. And what is it that as incubators and as spaces do we want to do actively to ensure a culture of entrepreneurship amongst people with disabilities? Because today, whether it is access to STEM education and the kind of places from where these people who are starting startups are coming from, there isn't enough representation. So is this an area that as incubating programs you all are looking at? And if not, is at least within your cohorts, is there an active participation to include sensitization modules for your teams so that, because oftentimes I've seen, like I've been in the sector for a long time, that they create the idea and then come for user testing, and a lot of assumptions have already gone in, as against to do that beginning, right, and then build something from there. So just both an observation and a question. Anybody can.
If I could, I think that's a fantastic question. Thank you for that. So personally, I can't speak to the other panelists, but personally what we do at the Zero Project is, as long as there's no one on the core team with a disability, we don't accept the project. I know it's a very hard stance to take, but I think that's where it starts, right? You need to have the lived experience. You need to have that user-centric sort of design. You need to have the, and when I say lived experience, it's just so much more. It's culturally relevant as well. It's a gender relevance. It's these intersectionalities that there's no way that I can even bring to the table. So personally, what we do is that as long as someone with a disability is not involved in the initial design of a program or a policy or a practice, it's not accepted. And that's the threshold that we keep it at. And this includes cross disability, not just we all know there's a hierarchy of disabilities. Wheelchair users are up there, and then you have physical, but we don't really hear anything from, for example, learning disabled people or people with intellectual disabilities. And it is a challenge. It's something that even we are trying to figure out how we can do this, but it needs to start somewhere. And I think it's a very hard rule to put there, but once you put it out there, people find ways to comply with it. So, yeah.
Would like to answer.
Okay. So I see a lot of innovators who come, especially from colleges and all that, and it's often a situation where the cart is put before the horse. Okay, a person imagines what a person with disability should have as an AT and goes ahead and builds a solution. Okay? And then they come to us and say, "Hey, I got the solution. I got the prototype. I got this. I got that." And I say, "Who's going to use this? What?" I'll state an example. There's something called the TI IACDC. It's a program that is run by TI for college students to innovation in the college level, and there's a countrywide competition, and the winners of the competition get incubated. Okay? And this particular team got incubated in IIM Bangalore, where I'm a mentor. They came to me. They said, "Oh, we've got incubated. This is what this is," and all. They came and described the solution to me. So I said, and for them having won the prize meant there was validation. So I said, "No, that's not the case, right? Who's going to use this?" And I told them reasons why nobody would use that particular. So it was meant for visually impaired. And I said, "Go talk to 10 people with visual impairment and come back and tell me how many of them gave these reasons that how many of them said they would use it." They came back to me in 2 weeks' time and said none of them wanted to use what we had built. They said it is not useful at all to them. Right? So it is not necessary that people with disabilities should be part of the team, but it is important that a user study is done about a need and about a fitment as to how the need is being solved before you go ahead and actually build solutions. Right? And that is some place that we play a critical part in terms of looking at fitment of the solution. Whether it is commercially viable or not is a second step. But the first step is there must be somebody to use it. It must solve a problem meaningfully. Otherwise, it's of no use. And it is for that reason that we also look at people who have built prototypes and only look at those who have built prototypes. Because there's a big gap from an idea to building something that works. That's a prototype. From a prototype to a product is another big valley to jump. And that is a valley that we talk about. And that is where we get into user testing and clinical testing. Right? Prototypes, a lot of them want to make prototypes. They make prototypes and come, it will work. But whether somebody will use it or not is a big question.
Can I also add a bit? So because we are pre-incubators, so we are actually one step before that. So we have a 6-month kind of a probe, we call it a probe phase. And when teams, even with prototypes, when they do join our cohort, for the first 3 months, we don't want to hear the word solution. Right? So at least for the first 3 months, all they do is go on field, talk to people, come back. And even though they think they've solved the problem, we don't want to hear about it at all. Right? So that's one thing. And in that journey, they do realize that it's not as cut and dry or as straightforward as it seems. The second is we also look at holistic approach. So a lot of the times, a lot of people try to solve it for the person with disability. They do not care much about the caregivers, right? And it's often the caregivers whose needs are equally important. They are the ones who are going to enable that innovation in many cases. So we also bring in that perspective, right? So do not go and talk to just a person with disability. Also talk to the primary caregivers, secondary caregivers. And oftentimes we realize through all these conversations, when they do come back, I don't necessarily agree that empathy has to be born. It can be created provided you are genuinely interested in solving a problem for them, right? So that's something that we have found to be very, very valuable. So the sensitization, not in terms of just the law or not in terms of what a disability is, but also the human-centric perspective that a lot of people are talking about. On playing the devil's advocate, right? Sometimes it helps if you have somebody with no experience and knowledge about it to come with some new thought. Because sometimes people with disabilities don't know what they want unless somebody has really brought in something interesting for them. Right? So sometimes it could work to the advantage where we don't go with a existing, so it's a pro bias. There is a bias that can creep in on both sides, right? For somebody who's not in that space, there is a bias that I am making assumptions and I know what it needs. But even if you take persons with disabilities, there is their own bias about what is the problem that they want to be solved, because that's for them the most important problem, right? So being mindful of that, sometimes having somebody just parachute an idea into that setup and try to create ripples, and some of those ripples may work out, could also work. So I think it's a matter of having that faith, but at no point of time should you not talk to people for whom you're trying to solve the problem, whether it's disabilities or children or whatever be your target audience. Spend time, talk to them, understand what what they feel about what we are doing. So co-creation is key. If there is any startup who says they have not spent time co-creating, it's a big red flag for us. So I think that would be a very important factor, and I think thank you for bringing that out.
Just a quick comment. So we don't run into those issues because we only take those startups that have already figured out how to serve that community and have mature products and use cases that they can bring to us. Having said that, I just want to also bring to your attention, to all of you, in fact, is that ATF has signed an MOU with the IT Madras Research Park, where we are trying to introduce a course in the second or the third year where people are beginning to understand how to build technologies with this sensitization to how these technologies are applied, to this market segment, to this community. So that's something that we are beginning to put together. So hopefully that will begin to see many more people building this technology with with some baseline amount of sensitization to how to go about doing this.
Yeah. So I will, tell you a small anecdote. So on the lighter side, which will feel all of us good that we are not the only ones who do things wrongly. Okay. So I was visiting Ambutech. Ambutech, those of you who are in the visual impairment space know that it's one of the largest cane manufacturers in North America. Very high quality canes they supply in North America and Europe. At Ambutech, I was there to actually see whether we can collaborate for the Smart Cane project. So he showed me a device. And this particular device was an ultrasonic ranging device which produced vibrations. Except that you had to wear it and it produced vibrations in the head. Okay. So he showed me this device. I wore this device and I told him that who will buy this device? It actually produces vibration. First of all, it looked like, something from the Alien, movie. And then it produces vibrations in the head. He says, that's the problem. Nobody is buying it. I said, who designed it and who? He says, RNIB, Royal National Institute of Blind, has ordered thousands of units and they are all manufactured and kept here. Okay, and nobody is buying it. Okay, so so we are not the only ones who can do such things.
Thank you. We'll end on this lighter note. Thanks, Empower, for letting me moderate this fantastic, actually, panelists. We could possibly go on for 1 more hour with all of them. Thank you, each one of you, for being here and contributing to a valuable discussion. I think if anyone has questions, they can continue with them over a cup of tea. Thank you, one and all.